everybody back. It was a nice time away, wasn't it? Yeah. I have to say, though, give yourself a moment here to come back. Because when I certainly walked through the door this morning, the energy was palpable. I mean, I thought I was riding a wave. It was just all over the place. It was great. And I love the ability to have that, to feel that connection with each other. It's absolutely joy-filled and joyful. And then I love to also take that time in the silence. Because I find for myself, and you may too, when I come out of the silence, having been in the joyfulness, my joy coming out of the silence knows no bounds. It's just a peaceful state that has that upward progressive movement of spirit that is so joy-filled. So I mentioned all that to you because this community, and I've said this to you before, has an enormous capacity spiritually and conscious-wise, if that's a word, to take the energy vibration and be with it and stay in it and then recreate it and go with the recreation. It's a marvelous gift. I'll call it a sacred gift that you give, certainly to me, to each other, and to the world. So, thank you. On that note, I'm thrilled we're having the picnic today. I'm thrilled to see you all here, and I'm thrilled to be doing this particular lesson, because this lesson is one that's fun. I noticed the last couple of lessons, some of you have said to me, wow, there's a lot of stuff in this stuff, isn't there, Rev Sandy? And yes, there is a lot of stuff in this stuff. We've been handling and dealing with the stuff of abundance in the Keys to the Kingdom, which is a series that's been written and it's been around for a while by David Owen Ritz, and some of you have found his material on his website. And I highly recommend it to you. There are 7 keys, he says. We're not going to explore all 7, but I bring you the ones that I think might be most pertinent for us as a community going through this very extraordinary transition that we're going through right now. And I think the ones that you have had and are chewing on, so to speak, are ones that are meaningful based on the fact that we're in a time of great transition and a time of abundance, and that transition always will bring with it many, many blessings. Sometimes we don't always see the blessings, but they are there. And so we're taking a look at that from the point of view of spiritual abundance. You will also see this week, thanks to the urging of several of you in your bulletin, on the back of the announcement sheet, are the 5 major areas of life that I keep mentioning as we walk through the keys, and what those areas actually mean. And then below that are the keys to the kingdom, make room for the new. These are the questions that I'm asking you to walk away with today after I finish, and we finish, co-creating our time together today. I think the last couple of times I've written, or I've read to you the questions that I've asked you to ponder during the next week. Well, some of you said, well, could we kind of kick it up a notch and let us have a piece of paper to take with us so we can work with it during the week and not try and remember. So that's what's on the back of the announcements, and I encourage you to take this with you as we move through our time together. The lesson today, or the theme for today, is make room for the new. We've been talking about holding the vision. We've been talking about abundance in our lives and how to truly work with just what is the abundance in our lives. Where does it show up, and where is there, quote, an appearance of lack? Well, when you're dealing with holding a vision, when you're dealing with a new way of being, when you're dealing with anything really in our world, it's very helpful, and you all know this, to really take a look at the spiritual laws that affect our lives. And one of the spiritual laws that I'm going to talk about this morning that is really important to making room for the new is the law of circulation. We call these laws spiritual principles. There are many of them. They've been around since ancient times. David Owen Ritz refers to them as the laws of life. And that these are laws of life that are just as important, if not more so, than the laws of civility that we have all established for ourselves. The difference, he says, is The laws of civility, that means the laws that we all live by, are agreements. They're made up. We make them up in order to live with one another in a peaceful society in a loving way. Spiritual laws are not made up. Spiritual laws have existed, and they're the laws that help us understand creation and where we stand in creation and how to work with that. Spiritual laws are impartial. No one gets any more than anyone else. Spiritual laws are those laws that stand for all enduring time, as the expression goes. And we can choose to work with those laws. We can choose to ignore those laws. Or we can say to ourselves, maybe I'll try this on for size. So this morning, in the interest of just having some fun with the spiritual law of the law of circulation, I wanted to kind of give you some ideas as to how you might work with the law of circulation. There's one point I'd like to make, and David makes it too. Any truth or law that's new to you, if it's to be embodied, it must be acted upon. Otherwise, it's, like I said and have been saying, it's lovely conversation. It's lovely to listen to, but it doesn't work for you because you haven't acted on it. So as we talk about the law of circulation, ask yourself, okay, do I really know what this law is about? That's part one. Most of us in this group will answer yes, we get that. And have I acted on it? Do I use that law in my life? Have I studied that law? Have I been a student of that law? And then have I mastered the law? See, lots of times we like to think in terms of, well, I know the law, I get it, I can explain it to you, but we really don't use the law. We just see it as something that we put back in the book and on the shelf, but it's really not used in our lives. So this morning, I'm going to attempt to kind of make the use of the law of circulation somewhat fun to you. Now, some of you will walk away saying, oh boy, this is not fun, but that goes with the territory too. So let's talk a little bit about understanding the law of circulation and working the law of circulation. The law of circulation is something that you all have known, and we all know, probably before we knew, we called it the law of circulation. And there are certain phrases that I'm sure you grew up with, I know I did, that are basically the law of circulation. As you give, so do you receive. What goes around comes around. Like attracts like, and you get back what you put in. Those are the Cliff Notes sayings that we've walked around, most of us, understanding that's, okay, yeah, what you put in, you get out. Like attracts like. That is the law of circulation. And part of the law of circulation is the universe, and this is David Owen Ritz's word, abhors a vacuum. Doesn't just dislike a vacuum, abhors a vacuum. And wherever there's a vacuum in the universe that's been created, the universe will rush in and fill that vacuum. And he uses the old example of all of us have been to the beach, we've tried to dig a hole in the sand, what happens? Hole doesn't last. Hole gets filled up, sand rushes in. The vacuum was created, the universe rushed in and said, He uses another one that I've actually seen him do, where he sucks in the air in his cheeks and creates vacuum. When you do that, you create a vacuum. And then you can't hold it all that long, and out comes the air. So when we understand that the law of circulation, and one of its great aspects is the universe abhors a vacuum, and we start to work with that, we understand the value of actually letting go and releasing so that something new can come in, so that the vacuum is filled with greater possibility. And this is where we talk about remove something you no longer need from your life with the clear intention of releasing it unconditionally. Then observe the action of the law of circulation as it removes to replace it in kind. When we release things, it's not just releasing, it's releasing unconditionally with no expectation of what is coming next. See, very often, most of us, myself included, when I release something, and I kind of stand around like this, okay, what's coming? Where is it? I can't see it. Not here yet. Oh, that's it? Oh, no, that's not what I want. And that's the other part of looking and releasing to look. When you look to release, you do it unconditionally with no expectation of what is coming. And that's the other half of this aspect of the law of circulation that many of us forget, or choose to forget. We get that, but we don't sometimes like what comes that fills in, because we are not used to allowing God, Spirit, to work in and through us without a little help from us. You know, I really like, I think it should look like this. This is how I like it. So I'm going to give this away and wait for this to happen. And that's not yours to do. Yours to do is to release unconditionally, period. End of story. You don't have to stand around and wait. What we have to do is simply trust. Trust the universe. Trust God is coming to fill in. Because what is the expression? You get what you put in. Now, some people don't like that expression, and I understand that because there's a lot more to the law of circulation than that. But for those of us that are new in the exploration of this, just go with that for a while and see if, in fact, the law of circulation, as we're going to discuss this morning, might work for you. Your intention when you release needs to be pure, and your expectation is one of unattachment. And I'm going to give you 3 ways to make room for the new that's coming. And I'll say that any one of these 3 you hopefully can use. If you can't, that's fine. But I'm going to challenge you to suspend any disbelief you might have. Just go with it. Just be with it. This is a day of great joy. This is an opportunity to just take something very practical and see for yourself if this law of circulation is all that it's cracked up to be. So here's part 1, and this is a challenge for you if you want to. Many of you have done this. I'm asking you old-timers, especially like myself, I've heard this before, go home and do it again. And here's what do it again number 1 is. Physical objects, and please remember this, have spiritual energy. Everything comes from spirit. So the challenge number 1 is, go home and see what it is that's blocking your good. What is it you're piling up that you're not releasing or returning to the universe? Remember, that is spiritual energy. We're not talking about going home and throwing things away. We are talking about going home, and here's the challenge. Pick a closet, pick the garage, pick the basement, pick a drawer if you want to start small, and clean the drawer or the closet out, literally. Anything that's been in there more than 6 months, unless you absolutely need it for your pure survival, gets put back into the universe. Got it? Think about it. As I said, put it back into the universe. Some people have a great deal of trouble doing this. And I'm asking you to consider what you have in the way of things in your home. Look and see if you view that as spiritual energy. And you view, what is it about energy we know? It has to move. If energy doesn't move, it becomes a block. And that includes all of those spiritual or physical items you have at home. How many times have you looked at things when you've moved and said, gee, I haven't seen that in about 10 years. I guess I didn't see it since the last time I moved. That's energy that is blocking. It's not moving. It's not flowing. And if that is energy, if that is of God, if those spiritual, physical kinds of energies exist, move it in a word, in a phrase. Try it. I'm just asking you to go home and try that and see how far you get. I've had people call me and say, you know, I just started, like you said, small with a kitchen drawer. I couldn't do it. Because I kept finding reasons not to move things into the universe. Try it with your clothing. That always seems to be a big deal for most people. I can't throw that out. My Aunt Nellie gave that to me for my birthday. You haven't worn it in how many years, but Nellie gave it to you. Think of someone else in the universe who could be bearing Nellie's gift, who could be moving that spiritual energy to the greater good. That's how I'd like you to approach this. Sometimes our possessions become our reasons to cling to ideas of lack. I have to keep this. I grew up in a home, as maybe some of you did, where all Tupperware dishes, anything plastic, and all foil and string were kept. They were used over and over and over. And for years, we had a whole drawer filled with string, rubber bands, foil, and those things were used again and again. And I would say to my mother, Mom, what is all this? Why are we keeping this? Well, you might need it. You just never know when you might need it. Yeah, Mom. But when you look at that, as I do now later in life, to me, that is a whole blockage of spiritual energy that could be freed and given to the universe. Now, some of you may say, oh, but Rev Sandra, you just said, don't throw it out. I did. I've thrown out my share of things, I will confess. It's not about throwing things out. It's about recycling. All of us who are into all of that. It's about giving back to the universe. It's about putting it out there. Now, I've also had people say to me, oh, well, I took this dress that I love, and yes, I took it to the local donation center, and I felt so good about that. And I waited, and I waited, and I waited. And she finally said, and nothing happened. I said, what did you think was going to happen? Well, I gave my special dress. I gave it with heart, just like you said. And I got nothing for it. My. So I chose to just kind of let that sink in for a while. And not too long later, she came back to me and she said, you know what? And I said, what? She said, somebody gave me a fur coat the other day. I hate fur coats. They should be banned. No one should have a fur coat in today's world. And I said, really? And that was what? That was, how are you looking at that? That was what I received for that dress I gave away. Do you see the faulty logic in that from a spiritual point of view? You can see the human logic in it, sure. But that's not what the law of circulation is about. And this particular individual was trying to manipulate the law. Watch yourselves when you get into, quote, manipulation of the law. Remember, it's giving unconditionally with no expectation of return. And that brings me to one of the other areas I like very much, and that's opening your finances. Many of us are afraid of money. We don't understand that money is spiritual too. We don't know the soul of money, as Lynn Twist talks about in her book. We don't understand it and we're afraid of it. And somehow we just would rather pay the bills, stuff them in the drawer, not worry about really how much is in the bank. Others of us, we spend a lot of time looking at the computer with spreadsheets and where are our investments and keeping them safe and sound. What all of that is truly sometimes not trusting that money is of spirit, is of God. It is not ours in that sense. And money, just like anything else, needs to work for us. So the simple challenge, and I'm not asking you to go and look at your investments and come back with a full report. Try this little thing on for size. Try and give something to someone that's of value to you without the slightest chance of your getting caught in the giving. Think about that. Think about something that you could do from a monetary point of view for someone else without anyone knowing that you did it. Sometimes we like to give folks things and then kind of stand back and say, silently, of course, you're welcome. Yeah. No, what I'm asking you and challenging you to do is to do something or give something, if you want to look at it that way, of your time, your talents, or your treasures without the slightest knowledge on the part of the recipient. And there never will be the slightest knowledge. See, sometimes we give and then we'll say, oh, that's good, then I'll get that back later. I'm sure I'll get that back later. Isn't that what the law of circulation is about? No, the law of circulation is to give without attachment and expect nothing in return, to give unconditionally. So try that if you can. These are simple how-tos just to have fun with, because I really want you to live with and work with the law of circulation. We're going to talk about the law of circulation on a much deeper level, but right now we're just getting our toe wet. And my toe for you is, do you work this law? Do you understand this law? Truly. The other thing is, I would like to say this. In the goal area, some of us are goal setters and some of us are not. I would like you to take these 5 areas on the back of this announcement. And when you go home, I would like in each of those 5 areas you say, here is my audacious, absolute, wonderful goal for myself in this particular area of my life. And did you hear the word audacious? These are big, hairy, audacious goals. They're not just bucket list things. These are goals that you have for yourself in each of these areas that are just opening up the possibilities. You are setting the goal in order to declare to the universe, I have a vacuum in that. I don't have this goal right now, but I'm visioning this goal, which brings us back to holding the vision. It all ties together. So truly in these areas, think of the great goals that you would like to achieve in those areas. Ones that you're probably sitting there at some point, even now, saying, oh, I had that once. I had those goals when I was younger, or I had those goals when I was working at, 6 figures, but it's not practical now. I'm challenging you to take a look at that kind of poor circulation of thinking. See, the law of circulation applies to how we think, how we be, how we are. Are you blocking your thinking with thoughts of lack? Can't do it. Not now. Not going to work for me now. So go for it. Think in terms of these larger goals. So in those 3 little simple exercises, I'm asking you to take a look to this law of circulation. And then I'm going to ask you the 4 questions which are at the bottom of your insert. Do I have a joyful and loving attitude when I'm called upon to give? Do I bless the money that flows through my life and share of my good unselfishly? Do I use tithing to work the law of circulation and honor God as the ultimate source of my good? And tithing, folks, is time, talent, and treasure. We're going to do a whole other series on tithing and what that means, because the word tithing for some people still connotes absolute fear. No can do. Not going to make me. So we'll do that another time. Have I made room in my life for the good that I desire by releasing that which no longer serves me? And that's where I'm going to close. What in that cluttered mind of thinking, what in that simple cluttered drawer no longer serves you? What are the thoughts and the habits that you hold that you developed maybe years ago that just simply don't serve you today? You know what they are. It's time to reflect on them. It's time to bring them forward in consciousness, and it's time to look at them and decide whether or not you're going to give them back to the universe and wait for a new way of thinking, which you are now developing in a new awareness as you hold the vision. And all of this work brings us closer to a deeper understanding and awareness of our relationship to the God of our being. God bless you. We are going to have a rip-roaring picnic.